All right, so ladies and gentlemen, atrial fibrillation is the most common heart rhythm disorder and affects millions worldwide. Now, in Singapore, 0.5% to 1% of our population has AF, with prevalence of the condition increasing with age. Now, with us today are Associate Prof. Ching Chi Kiong, cardiologist, and Ms. Lim Xue Ling, our senior physiotherapist, who will share more on how we can manage the condition, from the treatments available to what exercises you can do with AF. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's put your hands together and welcome Prof. Ching.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for taking your precious Sunday morning to learn about this very important condition called atrial fibrillation. And I'll try to explain some of it over the next 15 minutes. All right, I have some little gifts to give out too. As if I prompt you, if you give me the correct answer, we'll give you some gift to bring home for the morning. Okay, so we went through that video, a very interesting video. Let me ask, anyone, ma'am, what's your name? Lisan. Okay, can you tell me what is the most common abnormal rhythm? Oh, very good, irregular beat. What is the name? What is the name of that condition? Very good, atrial fibrillation. All right, good. So when you see a doctor, right, and then you tell them you have irregular heart rhythm, you must get a diagnosis. Irregular heart rhythm is not a diagnosis. You know, just like I have a car. What kind of car do you have? I got a 3-wheel car, 4-wheel. I got 2 doors. I got 4 doors. So different kind of car. I got a station wagon. I got a sedan. Right, for example. So a car doesn't give you much information. What type of car gives you more information? So the diagnosis is atrial fibrillation. Okay, let me ask those by the side. All right, sir, what's your name? Tony. Welcome, Tony. Can you tell me, do men get atrial fibrillation more or women get it more? Oh, correct. Men. It's in our genes. Thank you. No fault. Being a man, you get higher risk of atrial fibrillation. One last question, ma'am. What's your name? Hi, Mary. Let me ask you, for someone who is less than 55 in the audience, versus one who is 80, who do you think will get higher chance of who has a higher chance of getting atrial fibrillation? The 80 plus. Yeah, very good. Right, thank you. If you are 55 and below, the chance of you getting AFib now maybe is just about 1 in 1,000. But when you're 80 and above, it becomes 1 in 10. So imagine, it goes up very high. And as the Singapore population get older, we will see more people with atrial fibrillation. All right, so very good. So we went through that. It is the most common abnormal rhythm. Lifetime risk means in our lifetime, 1 in 3. Much higher compared when we are older. All right, more common in men. All right, the women have it easier, so that's one. All right, we went through all this, right? Men, it is more common as we get older, and as we get older in Singapore, the risk or the number of people with atrial fibrillation will get more and more. Now, let me show you some videos, okay? Now, I'm going to test you on your knowledge of the heart. Ma'am, you look very intelligent. For you first, tell me what parts of the heart, what does a heart make up? What is it made up of? Okay, so it's a pump. You got muscles to pump. What else do they have? What do I hear? Anyone? Arteries. All right, ma'am. Very good. There's arteries to supply blood to the muscles. What else is there in the heart? There's muscles. There's arteries. Anyone else? Valves. Yes, valves are like doors, so that the blood will flow in one direction. What else? I'm going to give 2 packs to those who get the last answer. Anyone? Anyone? More than that? Anyone? Okay, so this is what I'm going to tell you today. There is also an electrical system in the heart. It's like the wires on the walls. All right, what caused the heart to pump in a synchronous manner? For example, the upper chambers before the lower chambers. All right, what caused it to pump faster or slower? It's because the heart is a very amazing organ, like muscles, right, to pump. It has arteries to supply blood vessels or oxygen to the muscles to nourish it. It has valves so that the valves make the blood flow in one direction, right? And within the muscles of the heart, there is an electrical system, electrical wiring. You might call it the conduction system of the heart. And it starts with a pacemaker. All right, it's called pacemaker, as in it's a natural pacemaker. It fires or causes the heart to pump faster when we are excited. When I put a mic to your face, your heart pumps faster because you are a little more excited about it. You climb up the stairs, because you are late, you run up the stairs, your heart goes a little faster. But now you're more relaxed, it slows down. And I see some of you starting to nodding in agreement as the heart slows down and you are very comfortable. So that's what the heart does, all right? It starts in the upper chambers called a pacemaker, and then it causes the upper chambers to contract. And then the blood flows across the valves. And then blood goes to the lower chambers, and then it contracts, it goes to the rest of the body. So you see, it's very nice. The blood collects in the upper chambers. Then it pumps, it goes to the lower chambers. Right, very nice flow of blood. Let's see what happens when the person goes into atrial fibrillation. That's atrial fibrillation on your right. Right, you can see that first, the upper chambers do not contract normally. It's quivering. It's like shivering, quiver, like a cramp. You can see that the flow of blood compared to the on the left, where the blood collects and empties quite well. Those with atrial fibrillation, there is slowing of blood flow. In fact, there is stasis, or the blood flows slows down, and there might be small collection of blood within the chambers of the heart. Okay, that's one. Number two, you can see that the lower chambers do not contract on a regular basis. Regular means like a drum beat, 3-4, 4-4. This is 3-4, 5-6, 7-8, 1-4. For those who do music, the tempo is so different. It's not 3-4, not 4-4, then speeds up, slow down regularly. Just totally irregular. So that's atrial fibrillation. All right. Now, how is atrial fibrillation diagnosed? Any volunteers? Any volunteers? Oh, who say that? Oh yes, for you, ma'am. It's an ECG. A little gift for you. Thank you. All right, an ECG diagnosis, correct. So it is diagnosed with an ECG. Right. So the trouble is atrial fibrillation can be transient. It means it comes and it goes. For those who have atrial fibrillation in a permanent manner, or what we call persistent, or is an atrial fib most of the time, you just do an ECG and you get a diagnosis. But usually atrial fibrillation starts off as transient, which means it comes, then it goes. So imagine the person or the patient must have atrial fibrillation when the ECG is done. And how long does it take to do an ECG? How long is this recording? 1 minute, I can tell you. So imagine, you need to sample that crucial 1 minute when the patient is in atrial fibrillation to make a diagnosis, and hence, it can be missed out for those with transient atrial fibrillation. What are some symptoms of atrial fibrillation? Ma'am, what are some symptoms of atrial fibrillation? A fast heartbeat. Very good. Yes, right, that's correct. What else? What other symptoms are there? Let me go to the back. What about, sir? You feel breathless. That's correct too. Have one. A little healthy salt option. Yes, ma'am? Feel giddy. Yeah, but, all right. That's very good. Yeah, correct. Well, not just giddiness. All right. Not tao hin, gong gong. Don't feel quite right. But giddy means they feel like fainting. All right. It comes fast and furious. Feel a little tired, or rather, feel as though he's going to pass out. Or the person just passed out suddenly. Lost consciousness. Giddy to a point of passing out. Those are serious symptoms, all right? So very good. These are some of the symptoms. So I think a very well-learned audience. Or, you're right, so they can have, number one, with or without symptoms, patients with atrial fibrillation has an increased risk of stroke, up to 5 times more compared to someone without atrial fibrillation. So that's one, strokes. And you know, strokes can be very devastating, isn't it? Some of my patients tell me that, you know, having a stroke and living with it may be worse than death itself. So it's very, very impactful. It's life-changing for the patient and the caregivers. Number two, because it pumps fast for no reason. Imagine if someone has atrial fibrillation now, and the heart is racing at 120, 130 beats per minute. It is as though he's doing a slow marathon sitting down. Imagine if the heart pumps like that for hours. You know, it will weaken the heart, isn't it? So it may cause heart failure in 20 to 30% of patients with atrial fibrillation. What else? Of course, the quality of life is impaired. And it results in unexplained or unscheduled hospitalization because the symptoms comes in an unpredictable manner. You need to see a doctor, isn't it? You need to run to the hospital. Not only run, you need to make an unscheduled visit to the hospital or to the clinic. So that disrupts your lifestyle. So these are the effects of atrial fibrillation. Let me show you some of the tests that we do. All right, this is, like I say, is an ECG diagnosis. This is a patient who had palpitation suggestive of atrial fibrillation. We put up a little, what we call a 24 hours ECG monitor. Because it comes, it goes, we couldn't catch it. So we got her to wear a device for 24 hours. And you see at 6:45 in the morning, when she just got up, all right, the heart was racing at 160 beats per minute. She wasn't doing a marathon, wasn't running, she just got up. You can see, sometimes it's at 160 beats, then it slows down to 80 beats per minute, then speeds up to about 160 beats a few minutes later. So as mentioned, the heart pumps fast and without a regular rhythm. Fast, pop, 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 pop. Slows down, fast. So that is atrial fibrillation, fast and irregular heart rate. Now what clues, what are some of the clues or signs to suggest that one may have atrial fibrillation? If you know how to take your pulse, if you know on your neck, on your arm, on your wrist, you find that when you tap out the pulse, not in normal rhythm is regular, pop, pop, pop. But if it's in atrial fibrillation, you'll be irregular. Right? There'll be no rhythm to it. It comes pop, 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 pop. No, there's no rhythm to it. You can't tap out and predict the next beat. If you have a BP machine, measure your blood pressure, you may have a heart rate that is higher than appropriate. Heart rate must be appropriate for the situation. Like now, you should be resting, be relaxed, less than 100, maybe 70s. For those who are a little more excited, or maybe anxious about what you hear or what you have, it may go up a little bit, 90s. But if you're sitting down, it's racing at 160, 150, that's abnormal, isn't it? Likewise, if you're running up the steps and your heart rate remains 50 or 60, that's abnormally low. When you're running up the steps, the heart rate should go up to 100, 110, 120 quite easily, and it comes down when you rest. So these are some signs. So a BP machine may show a high heart rate that is inappropriate, or the little icon for heart rate, the heart icon beep shows up, suggesting that your heart rhythm may be abnormal. And thirdly, if you have a smart gadget, ECG watch, for example, you could record an ECG, and that may cue you to having or possibility of atrial fibrillation. All right, so with all this, fast heart rate, irregular heart rate, it causes all these symptoms. Now, this patient, when the atrial fibrillation stops, you can see on the right side, it was in atrial fibrillation, then it stops. Normal rhythm takes over. But when that occurs, there is a long pause. The heart, stops for about 5 seconds. And this is one of the reasons why they need a pacemaker. Some patients need a pacemaker. When the atrial fibrillation stops, it takes a long time for the natural pacemaker to wake up and take over. And that needs to pacemaker implantation. Okay, so these are some of the symptoms of atrial fibrillation. Some are risk factors of getting atrial fibrillation. If you are age causes atrial fibrillation. All right, being a male puts us at higher risk. But the other things that may be controlled would be, for example, any heart disease. If anyone has heart disease, treat it well, and that will reduce the risk of atrial fibrillation. Keep active, that helps reduce the risk. Have healthy lifestyle, for example, alcohol consumption that's moderate. Do not smoke cigarettes. Control your weight. If there are other diseases like diabetes, high blood pressure, have them controlled, and that would reduce the risk of atrial fibrillation. And other diseases such as sleep apnea or lung diseases, likewise, treat them. Do not ignore it, because when you treat it well, it reduces the risk of atrial fibrillation. See a doctor, get it assessed, go on a lifestyle changes, take medication on a regular basis as needed. If need to, they refer you to a heart rhythm cardiologist to have a further assessment. That would help. So how do we treat atrial fibrillation? It's as easy as A, B, C. All right, A, avoid strokes. So you ask your doctor, doctor, how can I avoid strokes? A, B, C, okay? 2, how can I control my symptoms? Usually with medication. All right, and thirdly, what are the risk factors that I have to take charge of? I can't control my age, but I can control my activity level. I could control the way my dietary habits, my lifestyle habits, alcohol consumption, for example, cigarettes, things like that. What can I do to control and mitigate my risks? If I have diabetes, I'll take medication. If I have high blood pressure, I'll take medicine to control it. That will help contain atrial fibrillation. All right, some details. These are some of the medication that we give for people who needs to avoid or reduce the stroke risk. These are new medication: apixaban, dabigatran, edoxaban, rivaroxaban, or even warfarin. Talk to your doctor. They'll give you what is reasonable and suitable for you. These are some medication to control the symptoms. Usually medication, control the rate, or medication to restore normal rhythm, or procedures, for example, to restore normal rhythm, or a pacemaker to control the slow heart rate. And C would be, yes, take that opportunity to modify your lifestyle. Take the opportunity to gain control over illnesses that one may have, diabetes, high blood pressure, and such. Okay, it is not a death sentence, okay? A life atrial fibrillation is not, oh no, cancer, it's a death sentence. No. You can control and live with atrial fibrillation with a healthy lifestyle. Take regular medications, and see your doctor on a regular basis. So maybe a last question, right? Let me ask to the rows right at the back to see if you have pay attention. Ma'am, how do we treat atrial fibrillation? It is as easy as, yes, A, B, C. What is A? Yes, avoid strokes. B, better symptoms control. Very good. And C, treat your cardiovascular risk. I see that you have taken good notes as well. Okay, good job. All right, thank you. All right, and I think A, B, C, and I want to thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Prof. Ching, for the informative presentation, light-hearted as well, and nice giveaways. And it's good to see that a lot of people are taking notes. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention. Now, up next, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite our senior physiotherapist, Ms. Lim Xue Ling, to share how we can exercise well with AF. Let's give her a big round of applause.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Ling. Thank you for taking some time to come here. So thank you for staying also. So I'm excited to share with you on how to exercise safely, and of course to keep yourself active. Even if you have atrial fibrillation. Okay. So Can I exercise with atrial fibrillation? And you know, having atrial fibrillation should not stop you from pursuing a healthy, active lifestyle. And you know, but you know, it doesn't mean that you should, you know, after this talk, you should like, oh, I must go and exercise. And then after that, I'm going for a 45-minute brisk walking. No, you should not do that, okay? You know, especially you haven't, you know, start keeping yourself active for a period of time. Okay, so you need to be careful, okay, when you start. And of course, before you start your exercise, do check with your heart doctor or probably your resident physiotherapist whether you are safe to comment exercise. Okay, after, you know, the atrial fibrillation, your irregular heartbeat is well controlled. Okay. Okay, so what is exercise? So, you know, I have a lot of patients telling me, or, you know, my clients telling me that, exercise, yeah, have. Every day I go down, drink some coffee, then after that I walk to the NTUC, and then after I walk around. Yeah, I do that every day, half an hour. Okay, so this is not an exercise, okay? This is actually a physical activity. So physical activity means is what you do every day, okay? Whether you have a sedentary, like a slow physical activity, or a moderate, like for example, you know, if you do a lot of housework, or you do a lot of grocery shopping, okay, or you walk to the MRT station, okay, or you know, probably your work require you to travel a lot, then that will be a bit more vigorous, or like a construction worker, you know, doing a lot of physical or labor work, that will be a vigorous physical activity, okay? So for exercise, okay, you have to make some time. I know time is very precious, okay, but I think for your health, I think it's a good investment, all right? Okay, that, you know, you have to, you know, really have a plan and structure, repetitive movement that is done continuously, half an hour, okay, over a period of time. And, you know, it will definitely help you in a long run. Okay, so this is by Health Promotion Board, not by me. Okay, so, you know, they recommend that you have at least 150 to 300, a bit increase. Last time, only 100 to about 200 only. Now they want you to be a bit more active. Okay. All right. So moderate intensity. Later I will let you know what is moderate intensity about. Okay. So physical activity. So anything that you do daily, including your exercise, okay, will actually help you, okay, to keep yourself active. All right. And of course, you know, it will be also good for you to have some strengthening exercise as well. Okay, so that you can keep your, you know, strength and balance, okay, at least about twice a week. All right. Okay, so how does exercise actually help atrial fibrillation? So what happens is that it actually reduces the burden or the frequency and the severity of, you know, the occurrence of AF coming in. So like Prof. G say, it can come and go anytime. Okay, so by reducing the your blood pressure, your risk factors, your, you know, and also with exercise, it can help your heart muscle pump to be a bit more be stronger. Okay, and in the long run, it actually help to lower down your heart rate, because when your heart pump is stronger, it doesn't need to beat too many times, you know, over, you know, within 24/7. Okay, and as well as, you know, if you are able to control your blood pressure, your weight, as well as your blood sugar level, okay, these are some of the major risk factors that can be modified, okay, through exercise and your lifestyle, okay, and eating as well, okay. Okay, so how do I exercise safely? So first thing, okay, very, very important for patients with atrial fibrillation, okay, you have to do warm-up exercises, okay? It's just, you cannot just like, when you are sleeping and then after that you wake up and then after that you quickly go and exercise. No, okay, it will add additional stress to your heart. So you can do, just like a 5 minute to 10 minutes of slow walking, or you can do, some seated stretches just to let your body and, and as well as to tell your heart that, I'm going down for an exercise, okay, so that you will allow your heart rate to go up gradually, okay, when you are starting to do your exercise activity, okay. So the easiest way to warm up is to walk, okay. So if you want to hop on a bicycle or a exercise bike or a treadmill, okay, you just do some walking, like slow walking on the ground, okay, before you can comment on the exercise activity, okay. So we go by FITT, okay. So for frequency, okay, in order to achieve 150 minimum, okay, okay, of physical activity, okay, we would encourage you to exercise for about 3 to 5 times a week, okay, at moderate intensity, and you should provide yourself about half an hour at least, okay, to start the activity. So you can do any activity you want, okay, for walking, like such as walking, cycling, treadmill, and swimming. So I think some of the questions they ask me, can I do Zumba? Okay, if I have atrial fibrillation. Okay, so one thing, there is of course some risk to exercising at a higher intensity. All right, because what I want you to know is, if you allow your heart rate to beat at a very fast, okay, maybe about 150, 160 beats per minute, you are actually at risk of triggering another episode of atrial fibrillation, and definitely it will affect the blood flow in your heart and all this. So most of the time, what I will recommend is that you should do something that it's more continuous, okay, and low impact, okay, because most of you will also be eating some anticoagulation, blood thinning medication. So high impact, okay, exercises, or very high contact exercises, like such as jumping, okay, or some of them, they like to do a lot of great hiking and all these things, right? I really do not recommend for you to do all these activities, okay, can, okay. So I just give you like an example, okay, between a moderate intensity versus a vigorous intensity aerobic exercises, okay, just like I said just now. Okay, so a moderate will be like walking at a speed of about maybe 5 kilometers per hour versus running, about 7 to 10 kilometers per hour. Okay, that will be quite vigorous, and that will probably lead to let your heart rate, beating at a very high heart rate constantly if you are doing the vigorous activity. Okay, can? Right. Okay, so for strength training, okay, besides doing aerobic exercises, okay, strength training I would also like to recommend, okay, because okay, as you grow older, okay, we will lose a lot of our muscle mass, okay, and in turn it will also affect your balance and your flexibility as well, okay. So if you do any of these strength training exercises, okay, make sure that you do it with whole ankle, and of course with big groups of muscles will do, okay, like for example your shoulder, okay, your chest and your thigh muscles, as well as your calf muscles. Okay, so these are rather big muscles that you can target on when you are doing strength training. Okay, we recommend for you to start at a light weight, maybe most of the time maybe about one, for ladies probably 1 kg to 2 kg. For men probably you can start about 2 to 3 kg. Okay, about 8 to 5 repetitions. Okay, so I see some of them they like to ho 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 ho. Okay, so please do not do that. Okay, do allow some time. Okay, maybe about a few seconds, to do the movement, slowly, so that you will allow the muscles to react like I'm working against a resistance. Okay, and of course, is to also prevent muscle injury. Okay, especially if you are doing too fast. Okay, last thing after the exercise, it's also important for you to do the cool down. So for you, especially for those with atrial fibrillation, your warm up and cool down is the utmost important. All right. Okay, because what happens is that for cool down, okay, it will help the blood to return back to the heart to prevent blood pressure from dropping, as well as to to prevent muscle soreness, which you may feel the next day. Okay, so why we need to do cool down exercises, okay, is because when your muscles stops working, okay, there will be some blood that's actually still accumulating at your lower part of the body, which these are the muscles that have been doing the most work. Okay, and the pooling of the blood at your lower body is made worse because of the medications that you have been taking, the heart rate control medication, the blood pressure medication. Okay, or else sometimes even you are also taking some water medications that help to remove water. Okay, so the movement of the blood when taking this medication back to the heart will actually become slower as compared to a normal person. Okay, and if you do not do this cool down exercises, sometimes you might feel some giddiness. Once you immediately just stop your exercise, right after your long session, okay, during your activity. Okay, so do not exercise if you have experienced these symptoms. Okay, if you are unwell or if you are taking antibiotics, okay, please rest. All right. Okay, you can go back to your activity again after you have recovered. Okay, and of course, if you experience the symptoms of atrial fibrillation, such as shortness of breath, experience unusual weakness or fatigue, giddiness, okay, or some fast palpitation, please do not comment anything. All right, please rest, or you have to seek medical attention, okay, if you have any of the symptoms. Okay, so exercise intensity. Okay, so for moderate intensity, right, so that means you walk with your friend or your spouse. Okay, so you all do a talk test with each other. Okay, so when you are doing like a walking activity, right, you have to ensure that they are still able to speak in full sentences to you. Okay, if they doesn't talk to you like, dear, okay, then hey, you need to slow down already, or you need to stop and rest. Okay, because you sound tired already. Okay, so this should be the activity intensity that this should be this can be something that you can do to to test yourself, whether you are exercising at an appropriate level. Okay, so for those who have atrial fibrillation, okay, it's not easy to get a regular heartbeat. all right, your heartbeat will be irregular, and it's also inaccurate for you to measure your heartbeat. Okay, so you will usually hear, some of them saying like, oh, my resting heart rate is at 60. Okay, I can only increase my heart rate up to about 150 or 130. Okay, so these people, they do have a target heart rate, but if you have atrial fibrillation, okay, your heart rate is irregular, it's actually difficult for you to measure your heart rate when you're exercising. Okay, a very safe range, when you are exercising, it will be around 100 to 130. Okay, because usually around there it was considered as a moderate intensity exercise. Okay, all right. So to, if you can, that will be a good range for you to gauge yourself or to measure yourself when you're exercising. Otherwise, you can use this. This is the rate of perceived exertion scale, which I think is in your handout that I have provided you. You can use it to rate yourself on how tired you are overall. Okay, 6 points means you are sitting down, watching TV, relaxing. Okay, so when you exhale, and 20 points will be like, oh, you climb like 20 flights of stairs like that, very, very tired, very, very breathless. So you should try to target, feeling within 11 to 13, whereby, you're still able to speak in full sentences, okay, without, gasping for air. And, after the exercise, you only require about 5 to 10 minutes of rest to go back to your baseline. Okay, any activity that require you to rest more than 10 to 15 minutes, it means that you have sort of push yourself a little bit harder, okay, during your exercise activity. Okay, so check your blood pressure, all right, and if you have your smartwatch or your oxygen oximeter, okay, you can actually measure your heart rate as well as your oxygen level before you exercise. And okay, so in control, usually at resting, your heart rate should be less than about 100. Okay, and if you have diabetes, please check your blood sugar before you exercise. Okay, and if you find that your blood sugar is low, please consume a fruit, all right, before you exercise, because when you are exercising, you are burning sugar as well. Okay, I do not wish for you all to experience symptoms of low blood sugar, okay, after your exercise activity. All right, so what I would like to encourage all of you all is to find something that you are like to do. You're like, some of you, like to do dancing, okay, cycling, okay, something that you can enjoy, because it's going to be a habit. All right, it's supposed to be part of your routine, okay, and it's going to benefit you are going to do this activity for a long, long, long time. Okay, so I will encourage you to do something that you like with your family. Okay, and do not compete with others. Okay, and you do not need to exercise vigorously. Wow, need to sweat a lot, then you really feel good, and means that you've done a good activity. Okay, you do not have to do that. All right, so thank you very much. If you have any questions, please let me know later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our senior physiotherapist, Ms. Lim Xueling. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Q&A questions. I'm sure you have some burning questions, a lot of questions. Well, this is the time to ask. So we'd like to invite our two panelists to join us on the hot seat, we call it, because they're going to get all the questions coming over to them. And I'll be here and I'll try to see if I can listen for your questions. If not, I'll come down and put the mic close to you, yeah? So let's begin with the first question. Anybody? Don't be shy. Raise your hand. Yes, sir. What would like to be your question?
Short answer, no. Please take your medicine on a regular basis. For further clarification and how to personalize the treatment, you should speak to your cardiologist and have an idea of what kind of goals you like to achieve. All right.
Because I've been reading through Google, right, that there's this in the pocket type of medication that you can take as and when needed. Because if it happens once a week, then I'm kind of like, do I have to do it daily if I'm not feeling any?
So there are various types of medication given for patients with transient atrial fibrillation or paroxysmal atrial fibrillation. That's the medical term. It comes and goes. But there are different types. Some ought to be taken daily and regularly with or without symptoms. And some may be taken when you have symptoms. So you have to clarify with the doctor which type are you referring to and whether there's a suitable strategy for you. There are also other treatment therapies, also like catheter ablation, to treat someone with transient atrial fibrillation. And that may achieve good control or even possibly a cure, so to speak, for suitable patients.
How do we know whether we are
Speak to your doctor, so he has you need more than just a brief chat. You need details about your heart, structures of your heart, how much atrial fibrillation you have, what are the symptoms that you have, how has it affected your other, the heart function and your lifestyle. So talk to your doctor whether you are keen to pursue normal rhythm. Thank you.
Yeah, we have a question. Just let me come along with the microphone so we can hear. Okay, sir.
Is ablation one of the treatment for AF?
Yes, ablation is one of the treatment for atrial fibrillation. As mentioned, treatment is as easy as A, B, and C. A, as mentioned, medication to reduce risk of strokes. That's to be taken with or without symptoms, regardless of whether it's transient or permanent atrial fibrillation. B is better control. Now, in the better control part, you can take medicine to contain and control atrial fibrillation, or take medicine to restore normal rhythm, which means not just control, get it to go back to normal heart rhythm. There's medication, and one treatment strategy is to perform catheter ablation. So these are suitable strategies to control and to restore normal heart rhythm.
Yes?
On this issue of anticoagulant, this Xarelto, is that considered one of the better ones as compared to the list which you had shown in your slide?
Singaporeans always look for the better ones, the better deals. Is what I'm taking better. Xarelto or Vivaroxaban is one of the newer medication. New means it's more than 10 years already. And it's the same class of medication like including apixaban, the Bigatran, same class as indoxaban. They have advantages. I think there are no what we call comparison between one drug versus the other. But as a class, as a group, it's a good class of medication to take to reduce risk strokes. It's a very convenient drug, no added treatment, or rather no added monitoring compared to warfarin. So I think it's not useful to compare, is Xarelto better than Eliquis or other drugs? But those are all good medication to take if to reduce the risk of strokes. It's more important to take it than to compare with other medications.
Some more questions? Don't be shy. Maybe also for Ms. Lim as well, exercise and so forth. Any questions? Don't be shy.
I want to ask about Qigong. Is it a good exercise, a good form of exercise? Because the movement are very slow.
Yeah, yes, I think you can continue with Qigong. Okay, because I think most of the time Qigong focus on the breathing as well as a slow movement. So definitely in terms of the intensity of the exercise, it's considered as a low to moderate intensity. So I think you can continue, I believe you can continue with this activity. Yes.
Thank you.
I used to sleep sleep throughout the, halfway through the show. I used to fall asleep. So is this a symptom since you mentioned about tiredness, the AM?
No, I didn't mention tiredness. It's reduced effort tolerance. For example, normally, I've got a 45-year-old man who had transient atrial fibrillation. He is a regular. He tells me that when he is in normal rhythm, he runs 5 kilometers with his men. But when he's in atrial fibrillation, he only runs 500 meters. And he felt that he's run 5 kilometers already. So no, I'm not sure. Falling asleep during a show is a very common behavior, you know. I can't be sure whether that's due to atrial fibrillation. As mentioned, it's a ECG diagnosis. If you have a ECG gadget, maybe record your own ECG during those episodes, or get one to record for you, that would be useful. But it doesn't sound like it's due to atrial fibrillation.
It's in the daytime.
Likewise, I can't be certain, but it doesn't sound like a regular symptom of atrial fibrillation. I know of many people who does that too, even during talks. They fall asleep halfway.
Any more questions? Don't be shy. Okay, coming over to you.
Professor, is aspirin a very good blood thinner?
Are you asking, is aspirin a good blood thinner for atrial fibrillation?
Yes.
Short answer is no. It is not useful. Take an anticoagulant.
Such as?
Apixaban, the Bigatran, Rivaroxaban, Edoxaban, or warfarin.
We can take 2 more questions. All right, 2 more questions to go. Don't be shy. Any more questions? 2 more questions at least. 讲华语是可以 if you need to speak Mandarin, if you're not very sure 怎么样讲英文，华语也是可以。Hokkien 话买晒。
Just to ask you why ablation was not mentioned in this session.
It was mentioned in the B. It says that other therapies such as catheter ablation. But it is one strategy, but I did not spend time talking about ablation because it's just one strategy in the B, better symptom control. You can use medication, there's lifestyle measures, and there is ablation and so-called cardioversion, which is other measures to control atrial fibrillation. Talk to your doctor. They will prescribe what is the best strategy for you to control or restore normal rhythm in patients with atrial fibrillation.
Okay, then I'll just do one last question for Ms. Lim. Ms. Lim, I've got a question here. Okay, let's take your question. Give me a minute. We'll take one from the audience before I have my final question.
I would like to know about does hot flashes cause palpitation? I just got AF anyway, so there are many things that I want to know. How can I maintain or not get AF? Is it possible?
The lifestyle measures helps. The medication helps. Right, so in people who has atrial fibrillation, I would strongly recommend a self-ECG gadget, something that you can record your ECG with. So when you have hot flushing sensation, record your ECG. Then you know for sure whether the symptoms could be related to atrial fibrillation. Otherwise, even when you see a doctor, we can only speculate, guess, But if you have a recording, it's very clear. Each time you have a flushing sensation, record the ECG. If it's normal, many times, then you can be reassured that, hey, this sensation that I have is not related to atrial fibrillation. It could be commonly related to hormonal changes in women, for example. All right, so I would recommend that to give a good, clear idea of what your heart rhythm is when you have symptoms.
One more question. The whole day, it can be more than 3-4 times. Although it's like more than 20, but I know I will not call ambulance because I know I will be fine. Instead of calling, is this safe? Because I don't want to have a stroke.
Good question. To reduce stroke would be an anticoagulant. Whether you have symptoms or no symptoms, that would be useful. Number two, we really need to know your ECG or heart rhythm when you have symptoms to give you a clear answer. Thirdly, if you feel unwell or any reason, you feel worried, unwell, please seek medical attention. That would be useful.
But it's just a short period within the day.
Correct. So maybe it would be worthwhile, you need to talk to your doctor. Perhaps they will help you do a test to prolong your ECG monitoring. Monitor your ECG for 1 day, 3 days, 7 days. We can even put in a little device under the skin to monitor the heart rhythm for 2 years, so that we have an idea of your heart rhythm during those symptoms. Then we can treat the symptoms appropriately.
One more short question. If I found that early in the morning I already take half of the medicine, and then in the afternoon I felt that it's palpitate very badly, can I just take another half, or what shall I do?
You really have to talk to your doctor so that it's specific to you. I could only guess what medicine you're on, and I don't want to trivialize, or overprescribe. It's best that you have that conversation with the doctor who has all your data at hand.
A very good question indeed, yeah? Okay, one final question for Ms. Lim. Now, how do I know if I'm pushing myself too hard while exercising? What will the symptoms look like? What would I feel? And when do I know I need to stop?
Okay, so how do I know? So I think very good judgment is that talk test. Okay, number one. Okay, make sure that you are still able to speak in full sentences without gasping when you are doing your activity. Okay, second, after you finish your activity, after the cool down, you should feel good. Okay, after 5 to 10 minutes later. Okay, if you still feel really very tired, or you still feel exhausted from the activity you have just done, and you still require a seated rest for more than 15 minutes, it means that you have pushed yourself a little bit too hard. And lastly, if monitor yourself the next day, okay, because there is something that it's a delayed muscle soreness. Okay, if you feel more or delayed fatigue onset. Okay, so if you feel more tired than usual, especially after an activity the day before, okay, it can probably shows that you are actually exercising too much, or push yourself a little bit too harder, okay, when you are doing the exercise the day before. Yeah, thank you.
And also recommended to exercise with friends, a group of friends, so if something happens, they're around you. And also a very comfortable time, like in the morning or afternoon, not midnight, because no one's around, and then something happens.
Not in the hot day,
Yeah.
also.
So in the mornings are good, or late afternoons, 5 or 6 o'clock, and also to have a smartwatch that would actually check your BP as well. If it's too high, you can check. Oh, it's quite high. You can stop for a while until it goes down lower. Would that be also recommended?
Of course, I haven't talked about smartwatch because not many of them would have. What I would highly recommend is to understand. You know your body the best. Okay, so first, even if the heart rate is beating, at like quite a regular, and you are already feeling tired, please follow how you feel. Okay, always follow how you feel and your symptoms instead of keeping in track of your heart rate, and all this. Okay, yeah, because it's just a gadget. Okay, most importantly is yourself and what you have been doing the day before, or what have you been doing throughout the day that could affect your fatigue or your physical fitness, or probably you were unwell or taking antibiotics a week ago. Okay, that's why you are feeling more tired, or you're feeling you feel that your active fitness level has gone down quite a bit, after your illness. Okay, so just go by how you feel and your symptoms first. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's of course give our two speakers a big round of applause. Would you like to give a final tip to the audience, sir? Maybe just 1 or 2 tips, perhaps, Prof, and then Ms. Lim, final tip.
Having atrial fibrillation is not a death sentence. You can still live a very full life. All right, and remember, the treatment is as simple as A, B, C. Thank you.
What I want to say is keep yourself active, I think, and find something that you really love to do so that it can be part of your routine and lifestyle, and something that you can enjoy doing with your friends and family as well. Okay, because this will help you to continue this active lifestyle in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Singh and Ms. Lin, and all our wonderful participants as well for joining us today. Now, we hope you have a clearer understanding of how to manage atrial fibrillation. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, this session is organized by Singapore Heart Foundation in collaboration with Pfizer. So with that, my name is Samson Z, and I would like to wish everyone a wonderful day. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Give yourself a big hand, everybody.